What if I told you that you could buy land to start your off-grid homestead for less down than you could currently buy a rare or special edition Labubu on the Labubu black market? And then what if I told you after that you would pay less a month than I imagine it would cost to keep them fed with human souls or whatever they eat? Well, if finding out how to do that is of interest to you, let's talk about it. Now, if you saw our video on how we took negative $27 in our bank account and turned it into this off-grid homestead, then you already know the story. And if you haven't, you can find that video right here. So why don't we just jump into the steps of how to make it happen for you? What do you say? It's been my experience that this first one is the reason why people fail at accomplishing this lifestyle. And that is sitting down with the people who you're going to take on this adventure with you and figuring out a strong, positive purpose for why you would want to put yourself and your family through this kind of a transition in the first place. Because I'm going to tell you, at least for the first year or so, it kind of sucks. It's hard. And if you don't have something in place that you're trying to go towards, not something you're trying to get away from, there's not going to be anything internal to push you through those struggles and hard times that I guarantee, I promise, you will experience, especially in that first year. But it needs to go a little further than that because those things are kind of cyclical. And from time to time, it's like an overwhelming thing when everything goes wrong at once. You don't have the resources to fix everything, so you got to choose what's the most important. It can wear on you. And I'm telling you, it's going to be that purpose that you've developed that everybody that's on this adventure with you is aligned to, that's going to push you through those hard times and help you actually keep your eye on the mountain, on the goal, on the thing that you're trying to reach. If you don't have that, let's just say you're like, I've always wanted to be a YouTube influencer, and I think this is the kind of thing I could do to get really good content to become that influencer. I'm going to just share a secret with you, okay? And that is, if you don't already have a chiseled physique and an even more chiseled jawline like you see in front of you, that's probably not going to happen. So becoming that homestead influencer is not a good enough purpose to get you through the struggles of, let's say, dealing with a composting toilet. I can guarantee it. So first step, sit down, work out something you want to go towards that everybody that's going to go on this adventure with you can align to. And you're going to find that everything that comes next is going to go way easier, especially when you get into the nitty-gritty of the whole lifestyle. Now, this is going to be a two-part video. I'm going to give you the first 4 steps in this one, and then you're going to have to just seriously consider subscribing so that you don't miss the next 4, because as we know, knowing is half the battle. And if you only know half, then that's a recipe for boiled chicken, and also the same boiling water that makes an egg hard makes a potato soft. So you're going to want to subscribe. The next obstacle that you're going to run smack dab into is the fact that in the lifestyle that you're in right now, money's probably pretty tight. And so you have to really shift your viewpoint about how you're going to be able to afford to pay for the things that you need to pay for when pursuing this lifestyle. And I'll tell you, the first step in that is to sit down and work out an actual budget of what you're paying for now, and then start removing the things that you won't be paying for when you get yourself onto some land and start developing your off-grid homestead. This includes things like, how are you going to make money? What things are you willing to produce yourself compared to the things that you're actually not willing to produce and will end up having to spend whatever money it costs to have those things that you want? Like, I don't know how to build a satellite to send up into space that would also be capable of giving me internet access. It's not that I'm unwilling. It's just that the knowledge is hard to come by. So instead, I pay the money to have Starlink so I can talk to y'all. So you need to make a list of all of those sorts of things and figure out what it's actually going to cost you. How much you're willing to pay a month for your land, how much you need to be able to make so that you can have the money to buy the materials that you can't salvage from somewhere else or get from your land itself. and thus figuring out exactly how much you're going to be able to put towards doing the projects that you need to do to make this life comfortable for yourself and for your loved ones. This may require kind of a shift in viewpoint about what's important. And it might even require you giving up some of those conveniences and comforts for a period of time at the beginning while you establish all the other things that will make this life livable. And then you can start to focus on having all those creature comforts that you may have had more readily available when you live back in the city. So you got to figure out the finances beforehand. I beg of you, I want you to succeed at this. And these first two things, I think, are the things that really make it hard to be successful long-term at this lifestyle. The next step is managing expectations when it comes to land. There is lots of land available out there. And I think most people go into their search thinking, I want the perfect land with the perfect soil, with the perfect environment and the perfect trees. And they're just searching all of this perfect type stuff. And it causes them to never actually engage in anything that would be suitable. And I think that's a huge mistake. I've said this before, everybody wants a finished Bob Ross painting with happy little trees and clouds with happy little friends and all of that stuff. But they don't realize that even Bob Ross's paintings started out from a completely blank canvas. There's a lot that can be done to land to make it into what you want. Now, there's an old saying, there's good, fast, and cheap. You can have any two of those that you want. So I would really recommend sitting down and figuring out, what do you want to do with the land? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to focus mainly on crops? Do you want livestock? Is the most important thing on your land the distance away from other people? You got to figure out these sorts of things because, one, it's going to narrow down your search from a huge pool of things that will make this whole searching for land thing feel very overwhelming, down significantly, which is going to make being able to make a choice about whether or not you should buy a specific plot a lot easier. And that's all going to come down to knowing what the land is going to be used for is probably going to be your biggest thing. You can narrow down the region of the country that you want to look in by weather, regulations, homeschool laws, the types of jobs that exist, rural community structure, whether or not there's the types of stores and things that you're going to need. All of that kind of stuff comes from figuring out what you want. But if you get to a point where the land that you're looking for, you have such a specific picture in your head of, chances are you're never going to find it, which means you're never going to actually start on this adventure. And that'd be a shame, especially if this is something that you really want to do with your life. So one thing that I recommend people do is make a list of all the things that are absolutes for you. And then really consider dropping a good 40% of those absolutes and putting them onto another list of things that you're willing to develop yourself, even if the land doesn't have it initially. Like I said, there's a lot you can do. This is a desert where we're at. And if you go to the property right next to us, it's like, there's nothing. It doesn't even look like life can exist there. But through some hard work and some clever use of resources, we've been able to liven this place up a bit. And you can do the same thing. It's not even that hard. So have a reasonable expectation of the land that's available to you, especially land that's within your price point, your budget. And don't let perfect be the enemy of good, because there's a lot of good land out there, a lot of good land that's cheap, and you can find it so long as you're not too picky. It's at this point that I would recommend taking an honest look at your abilities, your skills, the things that you can actually do. They don't have to be off-grid homestead skills. I mean, are you a musician? Well, maybe you could get a job like Cari did as a music teacher a day or so a week at a small rural school. And that might cover your expenses. Were you in the trades? Do you know electrical? Are you a painter? Like, what are your actual skills? And I would just list all of those things out so that you know exactly what holes there are to fill. Because there are things that you're going to need to know, like basic building principles, how to measure wood properly, how to use power tools. Like those sorts of things are things that you can practice before you move out to some land. This will also give you a list of things that you can trade with your local community once you get out there, because you could have a bunch of stuff that you bring with you to trade, but that's like the most difficult way I can imagine to do it. Skills are extremely lightweight. They're easy to pack, and they're very difficult to steal. So if you know what those skills are and can even take some time and build some new skills that are more applicable to this lifestyle, you're going to find that trading with the locals isn't going to be all that difficult, and you won't be the person who's constantly relying on the help of others to get you through a bad situation that you might find yourself in as you're establishing your homestead. Now, I'm not talking about being able to rattle off all the principles of permaculture. Those things are cool and everything, but a lot of those types of skills you're going to develop by doing them. There's so much information out there on these subjects. I wouldn't waste a bunch of time beforehand learning about those things unless you're just super interested in those things and you want to find out about them. But I've always said you're going to learn more about gardening by gardening than you are going to learn about gardening sitting in an apartment reading a book about gardening whilst not gardening. See what I mean? Just make sure that those skills are things that kind of fit the description from earlier. Things that you can trade, things that will make it easier for you to be able to just pick up and start building stuff. That kind of stuff. That's what I mean by skills. Now, these are the first 4 steps that I'd recommend you do before you even really start looking for land. That's kind of like the next phase of this whole adventure. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so that in a couple of days when I drop the next video, that phase 2 video I was just talking about, you're not gonna miss it. You know what I mean? You'll get a notification. It'll be my smiling face. I'll be doing something like on the thumbnail or maybe like this. Something like that, you know? And it'll help you get there a little bit faster, because that's the purpose behind all of these videos, is to make a transition from an icky city life to an amazing off-grid homestead life really doable for anybody, and easier than it would have to be if you were trial and erroring it like Cari and I did from the beginning. So, I hope to catch you in the next one. Love you, bye-bye.